They had gotten engaged only a month earlier, and together they shyly posed for the engagement pictures. Lakhvinder Cheema, known as Lakhi, 39, and his fiancée Gurjeet Chung, 22, planned to marry just weeks later on Valentine's Day and were hoping to start their own family soon. But on the 27th of January 2009, one of them would lose their life. Lakhvinder Cheema was from Southall in West London, and after his first marriage failed, he was looking for a place to stay. His sister suggested that he perhaps stay with her husband's brother and his wife, Aunkar and Lakhvir Singh, who also stayed in Westhall, and Lakhi soon moved into the couple's house. Lakhvir's marriage was arranged when she was 20, and she felt like she was trapped in a loveless marriage. And when Lakhi moved in, she immediately set her eyes on him and set out to seduce him. Lakhvir became obsessed with Lakhi, and the two began what would be a long-term affair. At some point, her husband had been diagnosed with cancer and started receiving treatments for it, but it wasn't as successful as they had hoped, and he started looking for alternative treatments and regularly made overseas trips to receive these treatments. This diagnosis wasn't a come-to-Jesus moment for Lakhvir, however, and she didn't stop her cheating ways. Instead, it provided her and Lakhi with more freedom to continue and intensify their affair. Eventually, Lakhi moved out of the couple's house when he bought his own home, which he would share with other tenants. But again, that would not stop their clandestine meetings, as it only provided a new avenue for their affair to continue. For years, Lakhvir visited Lakhi's house every day, cleaning, cooking, and doing his laundry with all the devotion of a wife. During their 16-year affair, yes, you heard right, 16 years, Lakhvir, who had already been a mother to 3 children, became pregnant with Lakhi's child on 2 separate occasions, and both times he made her terminate the pregnancy, stating that he was terrified of the shame that their affair would bring if it was discovered. Maybe he should have thought of that when he started it, I don't know. After 16 years, the relationship would however come to an end in a way that Lakhvir never expected, when Lakhi was introduced to 21-year-old Gurjeet Chung in October of 2008. Although their marriage was arranged between their families, Lakhi and Gurjeet ended up falling in love and soon celebrated their engagement with their nearest and dearest. But there was of course one person that did not share in the couple's happiness. Lakhvir was extremely upset, never expecting Lakhi to leave her for someone else. She bombarded Lakhi with text messages, begging him to break off the engagement, and when he refused, she called him a bastard and told him that he had broken her heart. She couldn't deal with the sudden end to their relationship and couldn't bear seeing Lakhi and Gurjeet together, so she ended up going to India for a few weeks. When she returned, her anger at Lakhi had intensified, and it led to a series of angry confrontations between the pair. Lakhvir also started spying on the couple and tried everything in her power to break them up, telling Lakhi that his young fiancé, who had entered the country illegally, was only after a British passport. During one of her creepy spy sessions, she peered through a window at Lakhi's house and saw the couple lying together on the same bed, having a conversation. Enraged, she confronted Lakhi, telling him that he should be ashamed of himself, as they hadn't even been married yet. Of course, being the absolute moral compass that she was, right? Lakhi, however, was unfazed and told her it didn't matter. Gurjeet was comfortable about being on the same bed as him, and that they were going to get married no matter what she tried. Not happy at all, she told Lucky, "I'm going to burn your house down." Now that's a red flag if I ever saw one. On the 6th of December 2008, Lucky decided to go to Lakhvir's house to have a conversation with her about everything that had been going on, wanting to set things straight and clear the air. She, however, thought that it meant he was opening the door to them continuing their relationship, so she cooked them a meal and the two had dinner together. Soon after finishing the meal, Lucky started feeling very ill, suffering from extreme stomach pain, nausea, and numbness in his extremities. Lakhvir rushed him to hospital, where he remained while doctors tried to figure out what was wrong with him. Lakhvir, of course, grabbed at this opportunity and completely doted on Lucky, visiting him every day, trying to show him how much she cared. After a week's stay in hospital, and still no diagnosis of what exactly was wrong with Lucky, he had made a full recovery and was sent home. Lucky then decided that he would come clean to his new fiancée about the relationship that he had with Lakhvir, wanting to start their marriage off on the right foot. He had also promised her that it was completely over. At first, she was shocked to learn that her husband-to-be had been having a lengthy affair with Lakhvir, who was married with 3 children and a husband that was receiving treatment for cancer overseas. But she wanted to be with Lucky and believed him when he said that it was over, and decided to move forward with the relationship. Lakhvir had thought that after the hospital incident, Lucky would come crawling back to her. But it had quite the opposite effect, and she decided that she would not just leave matters there. She again showed up to Lakhvir's house on Christmas Eve and ended up getting into a row with the couple, wanting to out the affair to Gurjeet, but Gurjeet shocked her when she told Lakhvir that she already knew about the affair. She asked Lakhvir to leave them alone, to stop interfering in their business, and to forget what had gone on in the past. But Lakhvir, being Lakhvir, refused and said that she can't just forget the feelings that she has for Lucky. This was the final blow for Lakhvir, realizing that Lucky would not be coming back to her, and she again set off to India and began plotting her revenge. On 27 January 2009, Lucky and Gurjeet sat down together to have a dinner of leftover chicken curry that had been in the fridge. Gurjeet heated up their food and dished up for them, and the couple started discussing their upcoming wedding that was set to take place in India on Valentine's Day. Lucky was still feeling hungry and decided to get a second helping while they continued going over wedding plans. As they started cleaning up, the couple both started feeling unwell. Lucky started vomiting and complained that his face had been feeling numb. Lucky realized that he had been suffering many of the same symptoms as when he was previously in hospital. Gurjeet soon started feeling the same symptoms. Lucky started putting 2 and 2 together and came to the conclusion that it must have been Lakhvir that did something to their food. He started going downhill fast, but managed to call 999, telling them that Lakhvir had poisoned their food and that they needed to send an ambulance.
This is the 999 call Mr. Cheema made when he first feared they'd been poisoned.
Okay, is your girlfriend conscious?
Yeah,
Is she awake?
Yeah, same like me. But we are very worried because...
Okay, so what makes you think somebody poisoned your food?
Because she was my ex-girlfriend. She came to visit my home.
You think your ex-girlfriend's done it?
Yeah.
The ambulance, however, didn't come, and he phoned his sister for help. As he started losing control of his limbs and his vision, he shouted, "Please help me, please help me," but Gurjeet couldn't do anything as she was suffering many of the same symptoms as his. His sister and 2 nephews arrived to his house and managed to get him and Gurjeet to the hospital. Lucky had gone unconscious in the car, and less than an hour after they arrived to the hospital, Lucky was pronounced dead. Gurjeet was admitted and placed into a medically induced coma to stabilize her heartbeat. She ended up making a full recovery, only due to the fact that she consumed less of the poisoned food than Lucky did.
Partially paralysed and losing his sight, CCTV shows Lakhvinder Cheema slumped in the arms of his 2 nephews as he's guided to a car. Moments later, his 21-year-old fiancée, Gurjeet Chung, is also carried out, ready to be driven to hospital. Within an hour of being admitted, her husband-to-be would be dead.
Thanks to Lucky's quick thinking in the naming of a suspect, Lakhvir was arrested on the 28th of January. She, however, was not having it and tried to blame her brother-in-law Verinder for the murder, as he had threatened Lucky a few weeks earlier when he found out about the affair. When searching Lakhvir's house, the police found a bag of brown powder in her coat, as well as in her handbag, which she said was a medicine that she was using for a neck rash. But the powder was tested and matched to aconite, the exact same poison that was found in the curry that was tested. Aconite is more commonly known as Wolfsbane. It's a poison that was said to be used in ancient times to paralyze and kill enemies. Like cyanide, it stops the heart and other internal organs from working, causing death by asphyxiation, and making it look like the person had a heart attack. Victims suffer severe vomiting, clammy skin, a tingling of the hands and feet, and the sensation of ants crawling all over their body. Breathing becomes slower and slower, stopping within as little as half an hour. They also lose the power to control their limbs, but their mind remains clear throughout, which means that even though they can't move or speak, they would be completely aware of what was going on. A terrifying way to die, knowing everything that is happening to you, but not having the ability to do anything about it.
2. Lakhvir Singh, the married mother of 3 he'd had a secret affair with for 15 years. When she discovered he was to marry his new partner, she hatched a plot to prevent that ever happening. On January the 27th last year, she convinced one of Mr. Cheema's lodgers to let her into their house. She then went to the fridge and laced a tub of leftover curry with the deadly poison aconite or Wolfsbane. That evening, the couple would eat the food as they discussed their wedding due to take place a fortnight later on Valentine's Day. Miss Chung is only thought to have survived because she'd eaten less of the meal than her future husband. He had a second helping.
Lakhvir's trial started in January of 2010 and gained quite a lot of attention due to the cruel nature of the murder. Never mind the fact that it was the first time since someone had been charged for murder with aconite since 1885. Way to go old school, am I right? Lakhvir had been charged with premeditated murder, causing grievous bodily harm, and attempted murder. Lakhvir, however, maintained that she had not been responsible for poisoning Lucky and Gurjeet. The prosecutor told jurors that Lakhvir poisoned the couple out of jealousy, anger, and revenge, and stated that this was a pre-planned murder due to the earlier poisoning of Lakhvinder on 6 December 2008. Gurjeet took the stand to testify and tell her side of the events of 27 January 2009. She said that on that evening, she had microwaved the leftover curry and then served it for the 2 of them at the dining table. Lucky had 2 helpings while they talked about their wedding, and Lucky started complaining about feeling unwell. He said that his face was becoming numb, and when he touched it, he couldn't feel anything. Lucky said he couldn't see anything, and he was losing all feeling in his body. By this point, he had called an ambulance and also phoned his sister for help. Wiping away tears, Gurjeet said, "I was feeling the same as Lucky. Everything was going dark. I began to feel dizzy. I wasn't able to stand up and my tummy was hurting. Lucky also started vomiting." She said that Lucky told her that the symptoms were the same as when he had spent a week in hospital in early December 2008. His sister and her 2 sons arrived at the house and again called for an ambulance, but to no avail. So they took them to the hospital, where Lucky died, having named Lakhvir as the suspect earlier. The defense presented in court that Lakhvinder Cheema may have been cheating on his fiancée with the woman accused of killing him. Lucky had in fact told his new fiancée that his affair with the married Lakhvir Singh had ended 3 years earlier, but she discovered that it was in fact still continuing before they had gotten engaged. When asked about it, she stated that she was deeply hurt, and that when she raised the matter with him, he denied that the relationship had been continuing and promised her that it was in fact over. The defense stated that she could not, however, be sure of this because in fact she had only spent 3 nights at his home before his death, which meant that she could not confirm this as fact, to which she agreed. It also emerged that he was with Lakhvir on Christmas, just weeks before he was killed, 1 day after their confrontation at his house. They also produced a romantic text message he sent to Singh on her birthday in October 2008 that read, "You will be my loved and I will give you all my love." In another message he sent to Lakhvir after his engagement to Gurjeet, he said, "I wait with hope for the night we meet each other in a dream." Gurjeet agreed with the defense that Lucky's behavior could be seen by some Sikh families as a great scandal, and said that his brother-in-law Verinder had spoken to her just before his death about their relationship, as well as the one that he had with Lakhvir. He allegedly asked her angrily whether she was pregnant and swore a lot. She was asked whether he used the words, "I am going to cover my hands with Lucky's blood, and only then my aggression and anger will calm down," to which she replied yes. They were in fact trying to use this as a motive for why it was not Lakhvir but Verinder that had killed Lucky. The nail in the coffin for Lakhvir was when one of the lodgers at Lucky's house testified to having seen Lakhvir remove the plastic container with the curry inside out of the fridge on that very same day and put something inside of it. At first not thinking that it was anything unusual, since she would regularly bring food to the house. Ultimately, the jury did not buy the defense's story, and Lakhvir Singh was found guilty of murder. She was also found guilty of causing Miss Chung grievous bodily harm with intent, but was cleared of attempted murder, and of administering poison to Lucky in December of 2008 at his home in Princes Road, Feltham, West London. During sentencing, Gurjeet delivered a victim impact statement, saying that she could never forgive Singh for taking away the man she was about to marry. She said, "I believe she should be given the sternest sentence possible so that it deters anyone else from even considering doing this to another person. I'm still under a lot of stress. It preys on my mind all the time. The time I spent in hospital was a very difficult time for me. I did not speak English. My family were not with me to take care of me, and I felt completely alone and isolated. I still do not feel fully recovered, and I believe it will affect me for the rest of my life. For several months, the doctors were not sure whether or not it would have a long-term effect on my internal organs. This gave me a lot of tension, and I am still under a lot of stress." She added, "Lakhvinder Cheema was my fiancé, and we were to be married on February 14, 2009. Preparations for the wedding were underway, here as well as in India where my family lives. However, it is very unfortunate that Lakhvinder was snatched away from us. He was looking forward to having children and also having his elderly father living with us. But none of this is now possible. His death was a major shock for me. Even though I had known him for only 3.5 months, he had a very important place in my life. Now, my life without him is extremely hard. The poisoning led to Lakhvinder's death and took me to the brink of death. Gurjeet sat only a few feet away from Singh in court, but the two women did not exchange glances other than frosty stares when the other was not looking. Lucky's sister, Narinder, who is also the sister-in-law of Lakhvir Singh's husband, also spoke of her pain in a statement saying, "He was almost like a son to me. My sons say that we cannot bring our uncle back, but we want justice for him. When he was around, I never felt that I needed anyone else. Now I feel as if there is only emptiness in my life. We do not know what Lakhvinder was going through, as I was unable to speak to him in his last moments. When my brother was alive, he could not bear to see me crying. Now I am left to cry for the rest of my life. Lakhvinder was a friend to everyone, and he always helped everyone. The day he needed help, no one helped him. We cannot find words to express what we feel in our hearts. We cannot adequately express the vacuum that it has left in our lives." During Lakhvir's sentencing, the judge stated, "You were not just a spurned lover. You did not simply explode in anger at your rejection. You set about a cold and calculating revenge. Your actions came as close as maybe to claiming the lives of two people on the verge of a new life together." Lakhvir was subsequently sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 23 years, which would make her around 70 by the time that she would be able to apply.
Miss Chung would have been about to celebrate their first anniversary. Instead, she was at court to thank those who'd helped bring her fiancé's killer to justice.
I would like to thank the police for their help and support throughout the investigation, and all the witnesses for attending court to give their evidence.
So this is where we will end for today. Please leave your comments, your opinions, and your theories in the comment section down below. I love reading what you think. As always, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you enjoyed my presentation of this case. Please leave a like and subscribe if you've not done so already. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Stay safe out there. Bye.